I promised myself I would never manage an artist again after the first time, because I had a very clear plan and I was really passionate about managing this artist, and everything I said would happen happened. The show fees came in, the social media came in, millions and millions of views. Money was coming in because the product was now good, because I was executive producing everything, and then it crashed and burned. So that was my Funk Volume moment. The one time we're not going live and I missed my cue. What's going down? It's DJ Payne One, joined by Dame Ritter. This is the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. The Music Entrepreneur Club and Beat Club are now both powered by BeatStars, which means you get free access. And that's amazing. So we hope to see you on one of our live sessions. We have 2 live sessions a week. So there's really no excuse. This is episode number 53. How are you feeling, Dame?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good about the new partnership. I think it's kind of the next stage in the Music Entrepreneur Club. Like I've always told people, man, you just start something, you put your all into it, you stay consistent, and you just improve over time. And I think this is that for the Music Entrepreneur Club, right? Like, we've gone through many phases of the platforms we've used, and you know, this is the next step for us, and we're grateful to have Abe and BeatStars kind of value education in this way, and to be able to. And we were already kind of linked, right? We've always been pretty supportive of BeatStars. You've been using BeatStars for quite some time. You've been doing interviews with BeatStars for quite some time. I gave one of BeatStars' first testimonials on their website, like probably back in 2011, 2012. BeatStars has sponsored tours and projects I've been a part of. So I think it made a lot of sense. You know, it's a relationship that has grown over time. Abe and I are super cool. We've gotten real close. And I think it makes a lot of sense for his community, because I think the more artists and producers are educated, you know, the better they can use BeatStars, the better they can use all the resources. So I think more beats will get sold on the platform, you know, just better businesses and smarter entrepreneurs will come out of, you know, just being better educated. So the pairing makes a lot of sense, especially with the attention on community that BeatStars has built over the years. So I'm super excited about it. My first guest tonight, Monday night. Actually, it's not even Monday nights anymore, so I guess we got to talk about that. The new times. I'm going to be live Mondays at noon Pacific time. So if you're on the East Coast, that's 3 p.m. But that's my new time. I was normally live at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's what I've been live at 6 for the past 3 years. So we're changing that. And I think part of that is to be more accommodating for our global audience, since BeatStars has a global audience. I mean, we have some people that rock with us, you know, in Europe and different parts of the world as well. But my sessions are going to be Monday at noon. And my first guest is going to be Jonathan Azu, who is a very accomplished music manager. He is the founder of Culture Collective. He had been working for, I think, Red Light Talent Management. Bottom line, he's got tons of years, over probably 2 decades of experience in the music industry. Has worked with like Anita Baker, Luke James, tons of names. So it's a really dope guest to kick this new partnership off with. So I hope it goes really well. All people need to do to attend sessions is text MEC to 844-206-7800. And we'll be sure to send out a link to the session every time we go live. It's free. It's dope. So I hope to see a lot more faces in our live sessions.
My sessions will be on Thursdays at the same time, so 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And better see a lot of Europeans in there. That's all I got to say. This is for you guys. So to kick things off, let's talk about you single-handedly destroying Funk Volume.
Oh, no, shit. No, I definitely don't want to talk about that. There's a small possibility that I will dive into this a little later on into the year. I'll dive into it in a more substantial way. And I'll open up the floodgates for all the comments that you get on your YouTube page, Payne. But, every time we post a session, there's obviously most people that rock with us. They enjoy what we do. And then I'll see a couple of comments that say, hey, why would I listen to this guy? He couldn't even keep his label together. So I just have a couple of things to say to that. It's like, number one, yeah, it did crash and burn, and that's not something that I'm happy about. But we came a pretty long way, right? Like, we came a pretty long way from nothing, right? We didn't have any industry contacts. We didn't have anything. Like, we literally built that label from the ground up, and we eventually got, the guys to be successful full-time artists. They toured the world, continue to tour the world. They made good money. And I give it up to anybody that is even, makes $1 in this industry. It's such a competitive industry, and the fact that we were pretty successful, had 3 artists consecutively on the XXL cover. Again, starting from nothing, I think that's something to be proud about, even if I feel like we only reached, 20% of our potential. That's how I feel. But the other thing I would say to these idiots is, like, they don't know me, they don't know Hop personally. So it's like, if one person says something that you don't know, how do you know that it's the truth, right? Even if you think it's the truth, like, how do you get that invested in it to, like, go to somebody else's page to, like, say something negative, right? You don't know Hobson, he says something. You don't know me, I say something. Then you just kind of don't know who to believe, but you obviously like his music. The only reason that people believe what they believe is because they like Hop's music. It's not because they know him. It's not because they, have any type of relationship with him. So, if I said something about the situation, it's not going to be believed, not because you don't know me and you don't know my character, you don't know my integrity or anything like that. You just believe the other person because they make music that you like.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is, Dame, and I've been telling you to do this for a long time, you need to just start releasing these cover songs that you've been singing for I don't know how many decades. I don't know why you're so embarrassed about it. You know how many people are building their music careers posting R&B covers to YouTube?
Nah, I'm good. I'm definitely good. I'm definitely not coming out with any music. And what's crazy is like, if I really wanted to be that guy, I mean, I just don't participate in the internet like that. But, and again, maybe one day this comes out. I have no idea. But if I really wanted to, like, defend myself, you still 5 years later, that's crazy. That's a testament to how deep the label was, though, too, right? Like, the type of passion and the energy that we built, still 5 years later, people still commenting about this. That to me is a testament to what we built. So at the same time, you saying this cat couldn't keep his label together. This guy has people complaining 5 years later that the label's not together. That's kind of amazing in and of itself. So he must have been a part of something so special that it still has people complaining 5 years later, right? So we must have done something positive, right? So I must know a little something about music if 5 years later people are still complaining. I still get it on my Facebook page, on my personal Facebook page. I still get it on my personal IG. So that to me is just telling me, like, wow, we built something special, and people are still hurt by it. And that's okay. But, like, if I really wanted to be that guy, like, everything that happened between me and Hop, outside of two phone calls, is via email. I don't even think people know that. But everything that happened between me and Hop, outside of only 2 phone calls, is via email. If I really wanted to be that guy, I could just say, I could go get the domain, whatreallyhappenedtofunkvolume.com or something stupid, and just post the emails. And then every time somebody posts a comment, I just post a link to the, but then people will come back, oh, it's Photoshop. Those not real emails. Hobson would never say that. He would never do that because I listen to his music and I know him so well. Like, that's probably what'll happen.
thought you said you weren't going to talk about this. All right.
But I did. Oh well, yeah. It definitely went longer than I was supposed to. But people know that I typically don't. Like I typically don't address these clowns. I might put like a little. So actually, somebody came for me this week in my Facebook page, and it had nothing to do. I posted something about our ridiculous and disastrous and deadly COVID response, or lack of, the fact that we still don't have a plan. We still don't care about testing. We're still not encouraging people to eat healthier foods. And shit's getting crazy again. And it's just amazing that we've seen 120 plus people die. And we're looking at the rest of the world having success curbing their cases. And we're still like, we'll figure it out. We'll do it a different way. Oh, you did it like that? You guys curbed the cases like that? Oh, that's interesting. We'll find another way to do it. Like, our country is so fucking stupid. But anyway, it was a response to that. Like, a post like that turn into funk volume stuff. Like that still happens.
Yeah, you really can't say shit, because if you're sitting here debating whether or not COVID-19 cases are spiking, there's going to be someone that steps in and says, well, damn, how can you comment on a pandemic and an independent label going?
Right. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk today about when artists need managers. We were supposed to talk about this last week. I'd like to jump into that. And before, I think let's give BeatStars another shout out before we forget. We give BeatStars another shout out.
Yeah, BeatStars is powering the MEC and Beat Club.
That's gonna feel so awkward sometimes. And yeah. Abe, if you're listening, if we forget to shout you out and praise you, multiple times throughout the episode, we apologize. We still love you. But Payne, when do you think, like, just generally speaking, when somebody says, hey, when do I know if I need a manager? How do you answer that question for?
I mean, look, I generally answer the question in the way that you hate me to answer the question, which is when you have something to manage. But I obviously know that there's more to the story than that. I think saying when you need something to manage or when you have something to manage is just kind of a catch-all for the average artist. But, I got a manager when I didn't have anything going on. The one time I managed an artist, he didn't have anything going on either. I think the distinction was that these managers, the manager that I worked with had an interest and a vision in working with me and a vision for me. And for me, with the artists that reached out to me, I was completely blown away by his talent. And I had a very clear vision and a really clear trajectory for him / timeline. And within a year, he had millions of YouTube views. He had original music. He was on the course to becoming a career musician. He was playing shows and actually getting guarantees, and travel and everything. So I looked at that situation. Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't. We've had this conversation. Would I ever manage an artist again? Hell no. It ended miserably. So that was my funk volume moment. But for just artists in general, what I often find is people will ask me to manage them without knowing anything about me or without me even being interested in their music. I'm not qualified to manage anybody that I don't have a vision for. I'm not qualified to manage anybody, period, if I'm being honest. I just had a very specific business plan for this artist, down to the USP, down to everything. And everything happened exactly as I said it would. So I felt vindicated. If it hadn't happened, I would have stepped away and let the artist, grow with somebody else.
I think you're qualified to be a man. What makes you say that? What makes you?
Because I don't want to be doing it.
Oh, right. Okay.
I feel like that's the biggest thing, because there are a lot of managers out there that want the title just to say, I manage it. It might be an attractive artist. Oh, I manage them. And now you feel like there are sick people out there who hide their sickness behind the manager title. So they're over there, they're managing this artist over here because they're attractive, or they're managing this artist over here because they're talented, but they have no desire to actually learn how to manage. They have no desire to learn the business. They have no desire to send out an email with literate and articulate sentences. So do those people need to be managers? No, but I think, and I'm not going to sit here and blame them. I'm honestly putting the blame on the artist, because if the artist truly isn't asking the right questions and is so quick to seek out management from anywhere, from under a rock, from someone who's not a manager, from somebody who really doesn't show any interest, from someone who doesn't present a plan to them. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Ask for a plan, have a conversation with someone. You know, if they don't have a plan and they don't show any desire to create one for you, don't be around them. But it's hard to say and this is why this conversation is hard, because on the one hand, obviously, if you're getting a bunch of inquiries and there's so much business piling up that you can't handle it yourself, then you need a manager. If you're at a point where, I guess in any other scenario, you don't necessarily know when you need a manager, because you might think you're the most talented person in the world and all you need is a manager to come see your vision and help you put it all together, and you might not be that talented. So I'm curious to hear your answer to this question.
Yeah, I mean, I think the typical, when you have something to manage, it's probably an answer that made a lot more sense like 20 years ago, right? And I think a lot of people say that because of how managers get compensated, right? They only get paid when the artists get paid. So how could you expect somebody to come in and do a lot of free work if you're not getting paid yet, right? So then I think that also needs to open up the conversation about, compensating a manager early on, right? Even if you can't pay him or her, I think there should, if that person is putting in a lot of work, that's kind of like sweat equity. And there should be a conversation that promises them like some type of compensation when you do start working for a certain amount of time, right? Because if people do come in super early and they're just the manager and they don't have any guarantee for payment at any time, they could, and then I'm talking to inspiring managers at this time, right? So like you could get cut off and essentially, put in all of whatever work you put in and never see any financial benefit. So there needs to be some type of discussion, maybe even some paperwork in place that, if you do start working very early on. But I think that managers can come in and help create something to manage. I think what you talked about is crucial, like the vision. Like, what is the vision? Like, I think you should get a manager when you have a vision for yourself, and you find somebody that's committed to being the best manager for you, whatever that means. Like whatever you lack in, that manager hopefully kind of supports and fills those gaps, and helps facilitate this vision, help it come to life, put the right pieces in place early. Because there's a lot you can do even when you're not making money. Like I remember going back, early days, Funk Volume, we didn't make money and it happened relatively quick, for us, because it was probably like 2.5 years before we started making, not crazy money, but like at least some money. But before that, just on social media, spending a lot of time. I think the contest started before we made a lot of money. So just finding different ways to drive engagement, utilizing live streaming platforms at that time, which were like Ustream and Livestream, and then a company I worked for called Yowie. So just coming up with creative ideas to engage with the fans. Like there's a lot of things that you can start to do, or that you kind of have to do before you start making money, and a manager can kind of come in and help, plug those holes. On the PR, I thought I was doing something like reaching out to like blogs at that time, but nobody was paying us any attention. I did waste a lot of time doing that though, just reaching out to blogs and trying to send them YouTube links and introduce the guys, and that wasn't a very fruitful exercise. But there's a lot that can be done. So the problem is also on the young manager side, right? There's not that many young people that I've run into that are committed to being a manager, committing to understanding what that means, the roles and responsibilities. I think it's a lot of what you talked about, just of kind of egos to say, hey, I'm managing this person. It sounds good, feels good. But they don't necessarily know what the role entails, and they're not committed to being a real manager. So that's definitely an issue. And I think we could use more smart up and coming managers. And it's just, I think artists sometimes get the wrong people involved early just because they've maybe hit a plateau and they just want help. And they think that the manager is the person to help them get to the next level, when oftentimes it's probably your music. It's probably like your videos that's why you're stuck. It's not a manager that's going to come in and pull you out of your hole. It's your brand. It's your messaging. It's all the stuff that, a manager may not even touch. So I think that's a huge problem with artists. Just because they're stuck, they're like, man, I need a manager, and I don't have that. And that's why it's kind of like when we talked about, I think it was last episode, about the 250,000, when somebody said, oh, you need 250,000 to get a song pop in. It's like, you don't have that. So now you have an excuse for why you're not working. Right. Same with management. It's like, oh, I need a manager. I really need a manager. I don't have that. So that's why I'm not moving. People are just looking for excuses. So long story short, I know I rambled for a minute, but like, get a manager when you identify somebody that is passionate as you are about what you're doing, has the willingness and the capability to learn. If that person is not a perfect manager right now, that's okay. But he or she is committed to being the perfect manager for you. And that person's going to learn the business. That person's going to develop relationships. That person's going to support you because they're just as passionate about your vision. So that's when I think you should get a manager. And those people aren't hard to find. Don't just put anybody in the manager role just because you're desperate. That's a terrible, terrible thing to do. Or
because you just don't know anything and you have no experience, and you think that they're the answer, and they're not the answer.
Right. Yeah, don't make desperate moves. Just continue to learn the business yourself. Join our live sessions, network with people, maybe take some of Indiepreneur's trainings to learn the business, to learn how to find your fans and things like that. But do not put somebody prematurely in that role if they do not fit the criteria that we just laid out for you.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing that I see all the time is artists who think they're at the end of their rope, or they think they're hitting a plateau, or they think they're hitting a glass ceiling, and the obvious solution would be management or a team or $250,000. And the couple times I've made the mistake to really kind of have a conversation with them and say, okay, well, what do you think, or what have you done? And it's like, I reach out to everybody. I put music out all the time. I contact blogs. I contact publications. Like, so basically, you've done literally nothing to build a fan base. You didn't talk about content. You didn't talk about a strategy. It just sounds like you're sending out tweets and DMs all day and expecting eventually something to change. And granted, there are some people who don't even do that. There are some people who will just make music sometimes and say, okay, cool, why isn't anything happening? And that's why I promised myself I would never manage an artist. I promised myself I would never manage an artist again. after the first time, because I had a very clear plan and I was really passionate about managing this artist, and everything I said would happen happened. The show fees came in, the social media came in, millions and millions of views. Money was coming in because the product was now good, because I was executive producing everything, and then it crashed and burned. And I think later on I started getting a little tempted to start managing people, but I had that experience in the back of my mind. And so there was a young woman who was a singer-songwriter that I was working with, who I thought had a lot of potential. She just wasn't at the point where I felt comfortable saying, okay, let's present this music to the world as is. Which is fine. I mean, that's artist development. That's actually fun for me, to see somebody grow and to give them input, and for me to learn from them, and just build from there. But my reason for just getting myself out of that situation was that I would, and it wasn't like a strict kind of plan, because we didn't have a contract or anything. I had a contract with the first artist, but with her, it was like, I just said, okay, cool. If you really want to do this, you obviously know that I'm doing this full time for myself. So why don't you try to do this? I think it was a photo shoot that she had scheduled. And I think a week later we had a session. I'm like, how's the photo shoot going? Oh, it didn't happen. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to reschedule it. So then I think a couple of weeks later I saw her again. I was like, oh, did you ever get the photo shoot done? She goes, nah, I never called them back. So I was like, I'm never investing my time that I need so dearly to invest in myself. Because I know if I task myself with something like, you need to run this ad, you need to optimize this video, you need to schedule a photo shoot for yourself, I'm going to do it because I have to. I don't have a choice. This is all I do with my life. But if somebody else is on the fence about it, stay on the fence. I don't need, that's your choice. I don't hold it against you. But if that's your attitude, don't bring someone else into it. Do not bring someone else into it, because somebody like me who relies on this for my livelihood, somebody else out there, you know, you're just transferring your failure to them. So I think first and foremost, if you don't have the attitude where you're already at the point where you're able to force yourself to do things that you don't want to do but are necessary, because how many artists wake up like, I don't know what to tweet, I don't know what to post, I'm just not going to do anything. Or I'm not ever going to go on live, I'm never going to go on do a YouTube video, I don't want to perform a show because people don't like the way I perform. If you can't take criticism, if you can't look at yourself critically, if you can't improve on your own, if it's just you in a room by yourself, if you can't look at yourself and say, I need to change this, this, and this, and actually commit to doing it, I don't think that this is a good idea to pursue at this time. And certainly don't bring another person in to manage that chaos, because they can't do anything for you. You're just going to pull them down with you. And honestly, the worst case scenario, and it happens all the time, is that you're going to end up potentially ruining a friendship because of that. I don't know how many friendships I've damaged because I've gotten into this relationship where people, and I made a video about that too, about how I used to have a team. And I know we've debated teams all the time, because I feel like that's an exploitative concept depending on who's using it. Teams where just someone leans on one person, and then eventually that one person realizes that they're doing everything for everyone and no one has a willingness to learn, because they're just in it for the moment and whatever fun comes with it. And then the second that person walks away, everything comes crashing down. So you're going to destroy a friendship, you're going to destroy a relationship, and it's just not a good thing to do as a moral human being.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, especially a couple of things. One, you know, if you're not able to bring yourself to do the little things, or if you feel like the manager is supposed to come in and do these things, right? Like these little things, like, oh, show up on time to this photo shoot, social media, like that is not typically what a manager is supposed to do. Like, you are thinking more of like an assistant, right? Just somebody that you just tell what to do and they just help you with stuff. That's not what a manager, or shouldn't be what a manager is supposed to do. And so you need a more clear understanding of why you need a manager. You need to be honest with yourself. Are you just lazy? Like, are you just late? Can you do the things that you want a manager to do, but you're saying you need a manager just because you don't feel like doing them, right? Like, that's probably the case for a big chunk of artists that are managerless right now that say they want a manager, right? And if you're skeptical about a manager, like, say, you're on the fence, you don't really, and I say this all the time too, because it's skepticism that kind of leads to a more self-fulfilling prophecy as well. It's like, you're skeptical about this new relationship, and because of that, you never commit 100%, right? You don't do the things necessary for the manager to have some success. And I think what happened with you and your artist is kind of rare. Within a year, like, seeing things come to fruition, that's kind of rare. Within a year, that's
Yo,
pretty
you want to
damn.
know the crazy thing, Mike? So I didn't jump into a management situation where I was the sole manager. I split it as a co-management contract with my brother Mark Evans, aka Mr. Get Your Buzz Up, and he went on to manage. I mean, because he was already managing artists, and he liked doing all that stupid shit that I hated. I'm like, if I'm calling this dude and emailing this guy just to confirm some details for a show that I got for him, I'm just gonna say forget it, because we're adults. He'll actually show up to the house. I think we need to have a conversation about this stuff. And I'm like, okay, you want to do that? That's fine. That's what his voice sounds like, by the way. But he went on to continue managing people after our Funk Volume moment. And he did the same thing. I mean, it wasn't like he created superstars, but he was getting, because, he was a booking manager for a long time. So he at very least has relationships with venues and promoters and this and that, and other artists in other states. So he was getting any artist that he managed, he was at least getting them events, and pretty successful events, like opening slots and that kind of thing. And they were getting paid. It wasn't like pay $150 and you can open up for, Young Berg. It was actual really good and beneficial stage time. And like you said, it's rare to see things happen, but things were happening. And I can think of another scenario where the artist just didn't trust him and thought, all this stuff is happening because of either chance or because of my talent. So let me just drop him. And this is all on him, because he just loved doing it. And so he would do it without a contract for a trial period. But that trial period was sometimes like up to a year plus. So I'm talking to people who are thinking about becoming managers now. Protect yourselves, because artists would just tell them, all right, I'm not signing with you. I mean, granted, they were shooting themselves in the foot, because what they thought was an unnecessary role in their career was actually a very necessary role in their career. And so once they got rid of that, things changed for the worse. But he was also left with nothing to show for after a year of investing his time and energy into one or two people. And so I'm not saying, people are so, and we talk about this all the time, especially you, and people are just so scared to sign something. And it's like, don't be scared to sign something. Actually read it. Actually hire a lawyer to explain it to you. But there's people who are so skeptical. And to the manager, I'm not saying create some super restrictive agreement, but make sure that you're covered. If you're going to invest a year or two of your life, make sure that it's a fair contract so that the artist wants to sign it, but also make sure that it's fair to you. And of course, me saying make sure that it's fair is totally subjective, because an artist might not think 20% is fair. I think it absolutely is. An artist might think a 2-year term is really, really long. It's not, trust me. But not everyone's going to feel that way. So it's a really, I don't envy managers. I can't do it. If you can, God bless you. Best of luck.
Yeah, I don't plan on ever managing a music artist again. I manage comedians now, and Big Jaw is somebody that I've known since college. So I never even really set out to be like, oh, I would love to be a manager. It was just something that just happened by default, running the label, starting a label with Hop. Like it just made sense because, there was nobody else. And, I was doing all of the things that a manager would do anyway. So it was just kind of by default. But I don't plan on it's a very stressful position. And artists don't make it easy. I think a lot of artists don't really understand the role, and that makes it harder for managers. I've been working on Brandy's next. I'm on the digital team for Brandy's next project, and she's probably a very wonderful person. And may not be indicative of how things are going to continue to be, but like. We had a meeting scheduled 2 days ago to talk about it, got pushed. Yesterday to talk about it, got pushed. And it's just like, I don't have the time for that shit. Like I'm working on too many things to like, and I'm not even saying she's a difficult person. She's probably a wonderful person. Probably the things that came up just happened to come up. But I just, you got to respect people's time. And understand what management comes with, respect people's time. So for the people that are looking for a manager, just make sure you are doing everything that you can right now to better your situation, right? And don't put anybody in there that you don't feel 110% can do the job. You trust them, and you're going to give them everything they need to be successful, and you're going to commit a certain amount of time. Like I don't, the contract, like I never had, well, we did have a contract eventually, when basically the structure we had was, obviously Hop and I owned the label together, and then Hop was signed to the label. So we had an artist contract, and then we had owner contract. But even now, like I don't have a contract with Big Jaw, and some managers will probably hear that and be like, damn, you're stupid. But like, and a lot of bad situations start out this way, right? Like, oh, we were so cool. I would encourage there to be a contract. But my thing is also I was managing Futuristic last year for a little while, and it's like, I didn't put a contract in place either, because it was just like, he wasn't starting from nothing. So he was able to compensate me from the jump. And I just felt like, if it comes a time where he feels like, it just doesn't make sense, then I don't want to be in that situation either. So that was why we didn't put a contract in place. And, sure enough, I'm not managing him anymore. Like everything's cool between him and I. We're still probably going to work on some stuff. It just wasn't a good fit. So management is tricky. It's never as simple as, wait till you have something to manage. So I think, long story short, I think it's when you find somebody that's just as passionate about you, that is dedicated to being a real manager, dedicated to learning what a manager does and being the best manager for you. And sometimes that person, you already know that person, and a lot of times you don't. And you just have to be patient. And no matter how tough this road gets, don't put people in position just because you feel like that position is open. Learn more about that position. You're going to have to do that position yourself, until you find the right people, because your team is going to be crucial in determining how far you go in music. So
it's going to be work on both sides. The management relationship is not just an artist continuing to do what they do and the manager coming in and doing what they do. You as the artist have to do a lot of work to make sure that the manager knows what they need to do, to make sure that you're giving them what they need to do their job, and so forth. I mean, it's a relationship like anything else, and it requires work. That being said, let's end on that note. This is the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast, powered by BeatStars.com. Shout out to them. episode 53 down. We got 54 coming up. MusicEntrepreneurClub.com is the website. See you soon. Peace.
Peace.